Hey, this is Greg, and it's another episode of Unbreakable Spirits. And I have my first guest with me today. I'm very honored to have Kris Keller, who is the executive director at Orion Communities here in Phoenixville, where I live. And we're going to learn all about Orion today. It's a great organization, and I'm really honored and thrilled to have Kris with me today. Hi, Kris. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, Greg, and thank you for the honor of being on your show. It's just too much fun to get started this way and to reconnect now that we're moving post-pandemic, right?
Yes, absolutely. We're going to talk about that a little bit too. Um, well, first of all, we're going to talk about what Orion is and what you do and what your role is down there. Uh, I got to say, first of all, it is an absolute pleasure to have you on today. We're all about inspiration and hope on this show, and that's why we call it Unbreakable Spirits. And to me, you are an unbreakable spirit. And I say that because I admire you so much because you have so much drive and passion for Orion and for people in need, people who need help. And so it's just a perfect formula to have you on because not only are you a person who inspire, a person full of hope, but Orion itself is an organization which is very inspiring and very hopeful too. Um, before we talk about that, I was on your website, and I'm going to talk about a few things I found on your website, which is really cool. But I like the definition of what Orion does. I think I got this from your website. It's very simple. It says Orion assists individuals and families dealing with poverty, illness, and disabilities to move toward a brighter future. That's great. That is so hopeful and positive. I love it. So tell us a little about Orion and tell us about your role at Orion.
Thank you very much, and thanks for doing a little bit of preliminary research and getting, just attuned to our current terminology. So Orion was founded 45 years ago when state hospitals were closing down, and people with different kinds of challenges, and they might be physical, emotional, cognitive, were literally being released to the streets with the state hospitals closing. And there was a group of people that got together and said, what can we do to support these folks that may not still be connected to their families, may have been institutionalized for a really long time, their parents may have passed, or their families' homes may not be able to accommodate them, may not have another bedroom, may not have ramps, however, to get into the home, whatever was needed. So it started very much grassroots and just listening to folks, what they were saying their needs were, and then listening in the community and saying, what other folks might be able to support these individuals. So it was an interesting process for the first couple of years because there really wasn't the government resources and funding that we think of now that's available. Not that what we have is adequate, but at least there's something and there's places to go to.
Right.
And so this was a way to go and fill that gap, bridge that for families. But the other common denominator that quickly surfaced was poverty. If you're a family of means, and you've got a special needs child, you had options. But if you were middle class or low income, you quickly spent down your resources and often found yourself in poverty. So while Orion's original focus was with folks living with disabilities, it quickly expanded to include people that were also struggling with economic realities of a very tight budget. So in 2022, we worked with over 1,450 households. So that's well over 3,000 individuals if you count each person in the home. And about 30% of them identify as being differently abled, and over 20% identified as being homeless. So that's a sizable population that's just really struggling. And the comment about poverty, it's over 95% of the folks that come to Orion live below the federal poverty line. And this year, the poverty line is $30,000 for a family of four. So if you just think about trying to live with $30,000,
Yeah.
for 4 people, and then the folks that come to us are mostly below that level. So that's the folks that we see the most. And what we want to do is give them hope, be a listening ear, connect them to resources that they may not know about. If they don't qualify for these resources, are there others that we know of? Or is there something that we can do to help and support them to get to that more sustainable tomorrow and a healthier environment for everyone?
Well, that's really cool. That's when I was checking out your website, I saw the quote, which I really like. It says, "We support, we teach, we connect, we listen." And I think that's very cool, because you're not just an organization that people can go to for help right away, for financial help, or perhaps they're looking for a place to live, they're homeless. But I mean, you do things like for the future too. I mean, you do counseling, but you support connections.
Mhm.
Okay, if we can't help you, maybe this organization can help you. Because you know what? When I was a social worker back in 1826, it's been a long time ago. um, a lot of times that was what I got, was like, wow, we didn't know that you were here. We didn't know what service you had.
Mhm.
And that's what I used to get a lot. I don't know if you still do from your clients, but that, wow, number one, I didn't know you were here. And number two, I didn't know you offered this. All this time I'm looking and I didn't know. So that's really cool that you could connect people to the services that they really need.
And it's helpful that we are located in the middle of town. Sometimes clients find us just by walking down the street, but because other folks know of us,
Right.
whether it's a religious organization or another social service agency or a volunteer, they've come to Orion, they know about us, and they can make referrals. And the listening part is so important, Greg. We've had
Yeah.
folks that have come to us that are homeless, and what they're asking for is a tent. That's what they want, a tent and a sleeping bag, so
Yeah.
they can stabilize themselves, be safe, have protection from the elements, but that's what they want. Where we've got other folks that come to us that have a tent and are desperate to get out of the tent and move on to something that's a more solid structure, whether it's housing or a hotel or some kind of a partnership with another organization that provides temporary shelter. So it's really listening to folks, because there isn't one size fits all, and we need to be tuned into what they're requesting and what the options are so that they can be connected to those services.
That is such an underrated thing, listening in social work. I remember uh, that, I mean, when I was an active social worker, I never had all the answers for my residents or my clients, but actively listening and really caring about people. I know I've been on both sides of the fence as a client and as a social worker. That means a lot. It really means a lot when you know someone is really listening to your concerns, and someone is really, it's because they really care, and it really comes through.
Mhm.
And that's what comes through when I talk to you. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about your great caseworkers and case managers down there, and all of them do such a fabulous job. And they are very, very good at the listening part as well as the connecting part. And I just can't say enough about them. They're so great. Let me ask you, you know what we were talking about while we're on the subject? We were talking about the pandemic.
Mhm.
Tell me a little bit about the pandemic. Now, you guys were open during the pandemic. Of course, needs don't stop just because there's a pandemic going on. How did you handle that while the pandemic was going on? Did you get more phone calls than walk-ins, or how was that?
Well, the first thing that happened was our mayor declared Orion Communities an essential business, so we didn't have to close down.
Great.
So that was the first step. And then
Yeah.
the second was we couldn't let people come in the office, but we
Right.
set up a computer in our front window and a baby monitor and phones so that clients could meet us in the front window with a keyboard outside and a monitor facing out so that
Nice.
they could apply for jobs or housing and all and have a computer, or they could talk to us on the baby monitor and have conversations while we were all figuring out what is really safe and what isn't safe. So
Right.
we did that for a good year and a half. We actually
Wow.
had 3 computers outside, as it turned out at one point. And then we had our own internet sidewalk cafe that folks could come and use and access our internet from outdoors. Plus, of course, the phone system. So our case managers were working from home for the most part, but work in rotating shifts in the office. So we could protect each other from having all of us exposed at the same time. So we had a Monday, Wednesday shift, a Tuesday, Thursday shift, and a Tuesday night, Friday shift of folks. And then the others would be working at home. So we could send messages back and forth. We had an internet phone system before the pandemic, which made that all a lot easier to work with. In regards to the kind of calls that we got, there was a lot of government money that showed up pretty quickly that helped stabilize folks. And they did put a moratorium on shutting off utilities as well as evictions. So that really stabilized a lot of folks in transition. What we saw, though, were quite a few people that were typically above the poverty line or middle class, and just found that they had never been in this situation where husband and wife had both lost their jobs because of COVID and they didn't know what to do. I was just telling a friend earlier today that we had a couple come in that both lost their jobs, and 4 or 5 months later they had new jobs, but they were about to lose their 2 cars because they had not been able to make their car payments, their car loans. So now they're worried about keeping their new jobs if their cars get repossessed. But they were so proud of themselves that they had paid all their rent. They didn't know the government would have helped them with rent, but couldn't help them with car payments. So we were in this in-between place. This was a couple that had never asked for assistance before, didn't know where to start. They were personally embarrassed. They didn't want their family or friends to know. They're just trying to hold it all together because now they've got the jobs. They could get stable again, but that's not where they were. So what we did is we called both loan companies for the cars. And one loan company, we were able to work out a payment plan so that they would pay a little bit more each month for the next 6 months until they caught up again. And then the other company wasn't willing to do that, but we were able to help bridge with some funding to go and pay a month or 2 of their car payment so that then they weren't in danger of being repossessed, and then they were good. So while they're not living in poverty most of the time, that summer they were living with poverty. We connected them with food pantries and other resources to stretch their budget until they could be stable again.
Right. Now that we're coming out of the pandemic, thank God, do you see an increase in people who come in now? Do you see any different needs since the pandemic, or where do you see the needs now? Now that we're coming out of the pandemic, as opposed to before the pandemic or during the pandemic?
So I think that there's a couple of things that are different. One of the big things is childcare. It's still not as available as it was, and it's a particularly challenging environment for lower income workers. They often don't work 9 to 5 jobs. And if childcare starts at 9 or 8 o'clock and goes to 6, but isn't there at 7 or 6 o'clock when they need to drop off their children, or working late, it's much harder. And there's just fewer options for childcare. So childcare affects how many hours you can work if you can't put that together. Another big one that everybody's talking about is rents. The rents have been going up all through the pandemic, particularly in areas like Phoenixville that's thriving, doing really, really well. Gentrification's a thing, but rents this winter went up for a 1-bedroom. It's over $1,800 a month is the average price for rent. And that's more than most mortgages. And it's a real struggle for people to be able to meet that rent. And then if you can't live close to where you work, you move out of the area, your transportation costs go up, and you're going to start to look for jobs closer to where you're living. So that adds another layer of complication. And there's actually businesses in town that have said we've had to stop offering as many services. Restaurants that have closed a couple hours early say we're just short staffed. We can't do that. A fine dining restaurant that used to walk around with appetizers at a special event can't get the staff to do that. And so now it's on a table. Small things in the scheme of things,
Yeah.
but they do add up. So people feel that. And the other really significant change to me is the number of calls from elders. We've seen quite a jump from 2018, 2019,
Yeah.
about fourfold increase in folks over 55. And for over 65, it's like 7 to 8 times increase.
Wow.
In 2018, we had 16 people over the age of 65 call us. In 2022, we had 118
Wow.
people over 65 call us. So that's a real big swinger. And a big part of that is housing assistance. They have an apartment, it's $850 a month, but the landlord wants to bump up the rent $200 because they can get it. It's going to help the landlord pay for their child's college tuition or part of their retirement plan. I mean, I get it.
Right.
Then they call us and say, can you help me find another place for $850? And it's just really, really hard to do. And the other thing is when one spouse passes and the Social Security isn't adequate to go and cover costs, or when they own a home, the mortgage costs and keep up with the repairs on the home. So a lot more calls from elders for a number of things, but particularly for housing.
Yeah, I can relate. I know my mom, I mean, it was tough, to be on Social Security, and it really, really, you don't know how you're going to live from month to month. It really is tough. And I'm glad we're talking about all this because I'm hoping, this, of course, this is going out to the void. This is going into across the world. Hopefully. I don't know how many people are going to watch it, but hopefully a lot. But I'm sure, even though someone may not be close to Phoenixville, close to Orion, hopefully they have an Orion in their community. And hopefully, the problems are we can all relate to, we can all relate to things that we've talked about, the things that Orion helps with. So that's why I think this is cool because even people across the country who may be watching this, they can relate to what we're talking about, And I think one of the big things that I wanted to get across too is don't be afraid to ask for help. Help is there. It's out there, and now with social media, with the internet, I mean, I would think it's even easier than before to find that help. If you just look for it, and people like yourself, like Orion, are out there to help people who are in need. So don't be afraid to ask for the help. One thing to also to mention too was that was interesting about the pandemic, how coming out of it, and it's just a scary time, still, thank God there are people like Orion there to help, I mean, I think about it too, and I can relate also because being a guy with a disability, I was my parents, I don't know how they did it with me, with just the finances, back in the day. And it's it was just such a different time back then, we didn't have an Orion back then. And I don't know how they did it, but nowadays, thank God there are organizations like Orion that people can turn to for help. And I often wondered how my parents did it when you think about not only the emotional part of it, but just the financial end of it. And you know, it's just,
Mhm.
it's tough. So I'm really glad that you guys are out there. You know, the thing is, I was looking, oh, I know, I found this on your, well, we talked about this a little bit, on the website. It says you have free access to computers, phones, fax machines, and copiers. Do you have people coming in quite often to use those machines?
Yes, we do. It was over 200 people came in last year, and some will
Wow.
be in every day for 2, 3 weeks while they're
Yeah.
looking for a job and applying to everything they can
Oh,
online. Some folks, we had a gentleman that needed to do a video training.
yeah.
Yeah, a refresher kind of thing for
Yeah.
driving.
Yeah.
And he didn't have a computer at home or internet or even an email address. And the judge
Oh,
just said, figure it out. And he had a friend that connected him to Orion. So he came in every week for 16 weeks to go and do this online training that he was court ordered to go and do. And he was embarrassed to go and ask, but grateful that there were some people that would help him. So it's having the technology available, but also having somebody that will assist you with setting up an email address
right.
and getting connected to those other programming or things that you're not tech savvy enough to do on your
Right.
own, but you need some assistance. So we've
Yeah.
been grateful,
It's so
and
important
folks are grateful
nowadays
for that.
to be, um, I'm not very tech savvy either, but to have assistance out there. But it's really important to be in the loop. You know, to have access to social media and to the internet, and
Mhm.
um, and that's good to know. That's, you know, that's a good question. What if someone comes in and they ask for immediate help? But let's say they want to go back to school. Maybe they want to go to community college. Now they want to get out of the rut that they're in as far as uh, you know, I want to go back to school. You know, I finally know what I want to do. And does Orion help with that? So talk about that a little.
Sure. Yes, and part of it's connecting with what the different options are. So spending time with the individual. We so often begin a conversation with what brings you here today.
Right.
Sometimes they're hungry, sometimes they need help with rent, sometimes car, sometimes education, or figuring out how do I go about doing that. So to have a person to just be able to sit and talk with about schooling, what's involved, what's the application process, do you qualify for support, do you have
Mhm.
any credits that will transfer, um, how big are you thinking, can we break it down into smaller pieces
Yeah.
and do part of that. Last year we had 2 women that got their nursing degrees that we've been working with,
Great. That's
and
great.
one of them we've worked with for a number of years, and it was quite a journey, but she kept working towards it. And sometimes
Right.
she had to take a semester off,
Yeah.
and other times things went according to her plan.
Yeah.
And the other woman had dropped out of school with one class left to take, but she needed rental assistance, and we were able to connect her for rental assistance. So that was covered. And then with the Rotary, that actually had scholarship money that would pay a last semester tuition. So it's not always that we have the funding to go and do that, but we have the resources. So we've bought books, we've bought a computer or an iPhone to do homework assignments, we've helped with tuition, we've connected with scholarships. It's
Yeah.
just listening to folks and where they are. And part of the reason we can do all that is we don't take any government funding.
That's,
And we do that for a number of reasons. One is there's other people that take, other organizations that take government funding.
mhm.
So we don't want to duplicate what someone else is doing, but we also want to have the flexibility to do the unusual, something different that falls outside the norm.
Yeah.
So if there's government funding and we know about it, we'll connect folks to that. But if you don't qualify, you've already used that resource, you're looking at something that's really outside the box. What is it that we can do to help you get to a more stable future?
That's good. That's good. Yeah, and on your website, it talks about helping people with reading skills and uh, technology skills, and so that's what's cool about Orion too. I mean, you address the immediate needs such as finding a place to live, things like that. But you're thinking about the future too, you know, um, and I think that's really cool. I think it's really. Now, just a couple more things. Oh, and you have a single moms group. Tell me a little bit about that.
So all of our programming starts with our case managers. We've got a wonderful team that really listens to the conversations that people are bringing, and what are the trends that we're seeing, what are the requests for gaps in services. So our STARS program was a literacy and digital literacy, because moms were telling us that before the pandemic, their third grader needed to create a PowerPoint presentation, and they didn't have a computer, they didn't have internet, and they didn't know what a PowerPoint presentation was. So to go to the library after school was a challenge when you've got one or two other children in tow, you need to fix dinner and all. So that's where the STARS program started. And then when the pandemic started, the school districts came and asked us, how are you doing this? How are you getting computers and internet and tech support to families that are under-resourced and don't have those tools already? Because we did hybrid schooling for quite a long stretch. And it was great to be able to share that. So we don't have to gift computers like we used to, but we still offer STEM programming and literacy and book clubs for families. The other program you mentioned for single moms is what we call GLAD. And GLAD stands for Gutsy Ladies Achieving Their Destiny.
Oh, I like that. That's cool. I like it.
And so do the women. So what we were hearing is that there's a number of parenting programs or support programs for single moms, but if you're low income, it's often a challenge to get to these places. Sometimes it's at dinner time, and so that complicates it, or you need childcare to take care of your kids. And if you don't have enough money for the regular bills, how are you going to be able to afford childcare? And then the other one is that sometimes there was a requirement, if you missed one or two classes, you couldn't come back. And the reality for low-income families is they have very complicated lives. They have less reliable transportation, less reliable childcare. So we tried to get rid of as many barriers as possible. We're in the northern part of the county. We don't have that kind of programming for single moms. So let's do it right here in Phoenixville. Let's provide childcare. Heck, let's provide dinner. So the kids will eat with the other kids. The moms get to eat. They get to help pick out the programming and the speakers that come. The moms get to do their thing. We get to do some robotics or book clubs or things with the children. Everybody's happy, building resources, and that's just very exciting for everyone. So again, it's our case managers saying, families need computers. What can we do about that? Our moms need a support group. They need a chance to build a cohort that helps strengthen them. They want to do the best for their kids, just like everyone, but kids go through phases. And how do I know what to expect in the next phase, and what should I do? So GLAD and STARS have been two very fun and successful programs for our families.
So we just have a few minutes, but I wanted to mention too that Orion, well, I've been to one of your fundraisers, the marathon, that was a lot of fun. I think you called it the rock and roll, your rock and roll. And the other thing I think is cool is you team with local businesses too, like the Colonial Theater. For those of you who don't know, we have a really cool historic theater here in town called the Colonial. And it's a very intimate, famous theater. And it's a place where they filmed The Blob, the 1950s cult classic with Steve McQueen. It's a beautiful, beautiful theater. And the people down there are just very, very nice. And I know you've been working with them and other businesses too, right?
We're so fortunate. We've got a very collaborative community here in Phoenixville. So it's not just the businesses, but it's also the other nonprofits that we can call them up anytime, or they can call us up and just say, got somebody that needs help getting their car repaired. Do you think you can help them out? Sure, send them over. Let's see what we can do. So we have those conversations. We've got somebody that's hungry. They can't come into our local food cupboard, but here's the address and all and phone number. Can you give them a call and maybe deliver some food to them? So we do that with our nonprofits. But the businesses, Steel City is hosting a Bob Dylan birthday bash on May 13th.
Yeah,
and so they are raising money for Orion. The Colonial Theater, we have our wonderful Music for Everyone concert in October, and that's a lot of fun. And it truly is music for everyone, because not only do we offer a variety of music, but our sponsors provide tickets for our clients to attend. So it's not just an event for people who can afford a nice night out for
That's
wonderful
really
music,
nice.
but for everybody to go and participate.
That's
So
really
we
nice.
really want to be neighbors helping neighbors and
Yeah.
connect everybody to create that healthier community.
And I love that motto, neighbors helping neighbors. And that's the way it should be, right? Whether it be in Phoenix or wherever people are watching us. I have a loyal viewer in Ireland. And I know she's watching this too. And that's what it's all about. Neighbors helping neighbors, right? Before we go, I wanted you to mention if someone wanted to make a donation to help Orion, how would they do that?
So you can go to our website, orioncommunities.org, and there's a get involved or a donate button. So people can volunteer, they can donate. Money is always appreciated to be sure we've got enough funds to get out into the community. Also, donating books or other kinds of resources, or also just making a referral. If you know about us and you know somebody's in trouble, just need someone to talk to, please let them know that they can give us a call, and we'll listen and connect them to all the resources that we can, or provide some of our own resources so that they can be more stable and move to increased self-reliance in their future.
That's good. Kris Keller, thank you for coming on with me. I hope everybody out there watching, number one, has an Orion in your community and has a person like Kris Keller in your community too. And I hope we've helped a lot of people out there today. And if you have any other questions, just drop me an email at gatsmith1@verizon.net or hit me up on Twitter. And we'll be glad to answer any questions. If you need to get in touch with Kris, that's good. If you have any questions about the program, or if you know anyone who would like to come on the program, who has an inspirational story to share with all of us, please let me know, okay? Kris, thanks again for joining us today. I hope you come back sometime. Thanks again.
Thank you, Greg. I appreciate the opportunity.
You're
Looking
welcome.
forward to see you after this.
Take care for now. Take care. Okay, everyone. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time on Unbreakable Spirits. Bye.